So I welcome you into the guide to easy painting, and today we are going to paint this picture. This is a picture taken from Edward Seagull. So this tutorial is normally a tutorial that I only show on my Patreon page, but as a demonstration I did put the full length on YouTube in French, and now I will dub it for you in English so you can have a look on how I present those videos on YouTube, on Patreon. So Patreon is not available just now in English, but it will be soon, and I will let you know when we are ready for it. So for this painting we are going to use the following colors. We're using ultramarine blue, then we've got burnt umber, red oxide transparent. I've sometimes have burnt sienna on my tablet instead of, or as well as, but it is important to have a transparent color. So the next one is quinacridone magenta, then we've got Indian yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, white, and yellow naples yellow. So this is my palette today. So what I'm doing here is spreading it out into a line. I'm going to do this with each and every color. What this does, it stops me from contaminating the whole color pile. So we'll take just from the front, the beginning of the pile, and we take some as we go along, and this enables us not to contaminate the whole pile at once. So now we've done this with all the colors, we are going to speak about the medium I'm using. So in this I'll have a bit of linseed oil and some turpentine. The turpentine I'm using is a oil based turpentine from France. I mean, it's from Italy, but I'm buying it in one of those companies I get my pigments. It is a very traditional made turpentine made out of pine. Of course, this doesn't take away the fumes, and also therefore the dangers of inhaling this product. So we'll have to work in a ventilated room, well ventilated, or even if you have like me have an extraction, so the air will be renewed constantly. Anyway, I am not using much of it. I'm using a mixture of 30% turpentine and 60% oil. And that will be my medium today. So what I do is I have a jar which I mark turpentine and oil. Well, I've got a T here for turpentine and oil, so the rest will be oil. So 1/3 of the jar will be is turpentine, and I fill up the rest of the jar with oil, linseed oil. Linseed oil I make myself, and as I said last time, I have got a video which I will put on there. I haven't got many comments of you guys at the moment, so I'll wait to get a few comments to know if you're interested on having the recipe of how you make your own linseed oil from cold pressed linseed. The brushes we are going to use are flat and filberts, so a couple of each. The lesson for today will be to use bold brush strokes, to use transparent colors for the dark parts of the painting, so we can make these recede, yeah, so mainly we are going to work on our brush strokes. So I'm using here number 4 for the drawing that we are going to put on this canvas now. It's a board, 3.5mm of MDF board that I've primed with some gesso, some tainted gesso. I'm using a bit of that medium, and with a mixture of my darks, so ultramarine blue and brown oxide, I will do the drawing. So there's many ways to get the drawing on the canvas or on the board here, but I'm choosing today to use a tool who's named Art Grid. I'm showing it here, see, Art Grid, and it is from Jackson's. So it is an English made tool, and it does what it says on the tin. It's a grid to help you with art. So how does it work? So first of all, you can download it from Jackson's. I think there is a fee. Well, in your app store there is a fee to £2 something. So anyway, so it enables you to download some pictures or photos or whatever, and then you are putting a grid over it. So for example, if we take this picture, and then we've got options to put it in inch, centimeters, etc. You choose your favorite. Here I was using centimeters. It doesn't matter, you can use inches. So once you've chosen yours, you go on to next. So this picture was 40 by 50 centimeters, because that's the format I'm painting in normally, or often. Sorry, 50 by 70 centimeters. So then, of course, you make sure it is in landscape. You hit next. This part lets you adjust it. You can zoom in, zoom out, so make it bigger, just take a part of the picture. You also can flip it, which can be interesting sometimes. And then once you're happy with it, you click next. And then you choose your grid. So there again, you've got options. I do not remember them all, but there is different grid options on it, and you can put as many lines as you wish. And there on the side, it gives you the exact measurement, that you can transfer to your board or your canvas. But it's a very, very good tool. Very useful tool, that is. So we are going to start our grid, or some marks for the grid, using a bit of my oxide brown and yellow ochre, adding a little bit of ultramarine blue just to darken it a bit. And with that, I'm going to I'm going to roughly trace my grid. Now I'm just putting some marks down, so you can do the whole grid. You can use to put a cross in the middle, I mean on the intersection. Some just put a cross on where the lines intersect. Well, I've just decided to put some rough marks there, just for me to have an idea where I'm going to put the features on the canvas. There are no many features, so it's straightforward. And then with straight lines, I am just drawing out my picture. So I've mentioned this before, but be careful when you draw out. That's why a grid is often helpful, because what happens is that we always make our objects, being a tree or a house or you name it, a ball of hay, always bigger than it actually is on the picture. And I'm sure it happened to you before. You were painting a tree. It should have taken a certain space, and you end up with a much bigger tree than you intended to. So be aware of that, and being aware of that, just paint it, draw it a little smaller, or make sure that you are not going to go over your lines when you start painting. And with that grid system, it should not happen anyway, because you can draw very accurately. So we are not going to fuss about this painting. It's going to be straightforward. And we have to remember that we don't want detail. We just want rough brush strokes. So there we put in what looks like a house or a barn, it could be, farm, whatever. We just outline roughly what we see. So Pedro Sigo is one of my favorite artists. I quite like Constable too. But I like Edward Siegel for many reasons. He was a very good artist. I am fast forwarding this part a little bit. You do not need to watch me draw a picture. I'm sure you're quite capable to do it in your own accord, and don't need me to show you stroke by stroke. All you have to do is roughly follow what is in the picture. So to show you here, I'm trying to wipe out my strokes here, and you can see that they're quite embedded into the board here. And this is because of the filler I put into my acrylic paint when I stain the board. And that filler is soaking in the paint and really staining the canvas, so that the paint you are going to put on that will be absorbed by this canvas very rapidly. So this is good, especially when you paint outdoors, because you can put layer after layer without to have to worry to be too slippery on you. Sometimes when you put 1, 2, 3 coats of oil, it can be very slippery. It can be very difficult to paint. Or at least to paint in a way that you don't do mud. So, which another term would be grey out colors. So I'm using a filbert now, and it will be important to wipe the paint that I used for the drawing, only because if you remember there was some yellow ochre in, and yellow ochre is an opaque color, and as we are going to paint the shadows, we do want only transparent colors, as transparent colors will give us that receding effect that we want in the tree. And so therefore we can't contaminate these transparent colors with opaque colors. So now I am blocking in the dark part of the paint, the shadow part and the dark part, using ultramarine blue, red oxide and yellow, Indian yellow. So these are transparent colors, and they have that beautiful power to recede in landscape. So here you can see very quickly I used some burnt umber, so that means I contaminated my transparent colors, so therefore I have to wipe it all off and start again, or more carry on, because luckily I found out my mistake pretty soon. But it just shows you that doesn't matter how long you paint, you always will make mistakes. And sometimes, like Bob Ross would say, there are happy little accidents. So here you see me put all the darks everywhere I can see them. And because of the filler I put on the board, these darks will be dry by the time I'm putting the second layer on. So now with the flat brush number 8, I'm going to get the color ready for the sky. And we can see in the picture the sky is quite grey. So I will start with the white, adding some Naples yellow. You can use yellow ochre if you want at that stage. And so I'll add ultramarine blue. So here in the picture you see it's quite grey, so I add a bit of oxide red, which will grey down my colour there. As you see, that combination works quite well to have a warm grey. Add a little bit of my magenta, that will balance the colour, the hue. Now it's a matter of filling it in and being careful that we put interesting marks, interesting brush strokes or knife strokes. Okay, you're going to see in a little bit I'm getting big artillery out, so we'll do some a little bit with the knife and then finish off with the brush. So there we are with our trusted knife. Now we have to get quite a bit of paint. Don't mix it all that well to have only one dead color. So leave a little bit of everything in it. It will make the brush strokes more interesting. You have a bit of everything in the sky. The knife can make beautiful skies. It's also a good way to speed up the painting, especially that one, as we've got nothing really going on in that sky. It's all plain blue. I'm trying to change it a bit at the horizon to have a little bit of depth in. So I'm following the picture, but I'm not a slave of it. If as you are going to see in a little while, if I decide I need to change something, well, then I will change it. If it improves, it's always good to change it. Don't stay a slave of your picture. Here we have a beautiful day today. I am in southwest of France, in famous region of the Dordogne. So I can go right to the edge of the tree because it is dry, as you can see. Nothing comes off here, it's quite dry. So I can really come right to the edge of the tree without being concerned of putting the tree color into the sky. Which can be very good, for example, now as I'm painting a tree, although sometimes we want the edges blend in with the sky. So I'll have to do it a different way, and I'll show you in a little bit how. But for instance, if I would have loads of clouds, I would like my paint to be a bit less dry, so I could blend at the edges a bit better. In which case I would just add oil. But for this painting it works pretty well. So we change it up a little bit now. Don't over mix it. So I did lighten it a little bit on the horizon, just adds a little bit depth. And now we are going to use our trusty big brush, 1.5 centimeter. So it will go much quicker now. And sometimes, or I think often, we are too scared to get out the big brushes, but actually they are giving us very interesting brush marks. So I'm after something a bit warmer towards the horizon. So you can see what color I use. I don't have to tell you every time what it is, but basically it's ultramarine blue, Naples yellow, titanium white, and a little magenta, and if I want it grayer or warmer, I add a bit of brown oxide. So now in business, you can see how quickly that sky is covered now. The big brush, loads of paint. Interesting colors. Add a little bit of pure ultramarine blue every so often. So to darken it a little bit here and to add some interesting brush strokes. So there we are, we're nearly done with the sky. Just have a last check to see if there is enough interesting brush strokes in there. I decide to add some blue-grey. Oh, see, I used too much red there. Quinacridone red, very powerful. You have to be very careful how much you use. So next we are going to blur out the edges a little bit, because as you can see here there is a straight edge. It's not only straight, it's dark, so your eye will go there straight away, and we want the eye to go on the left down there, not up here in the tree. So therefore we will soften the edges, and that's what I said earlier on. We can do it once, if the sky is not quite dry, we can just soften it in between. And here I have to add a little bit of my transparent color, and then we just soften the edges. So don't overload the brush. Just come back on to the edge and just gently soften it out a little bit. just wisp it out. But right here you see that this hard edge we had earlier on has disappeared, and it's a much better now, not attracting our eye so much to this point. So we do that all around. Wherever we see a strong edge, a hard edge, it's much more natural now as well. And just carry on, go all around the tree. We are now going to work a little bit on the trunk and the branches. For that I'm using the oxide brown and a bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of the burned umber as well. We want something brown, greenish brown. So, and then just emphasizing those trunks and branches a little bit. So we're only putting in the dark part right now. I'll be coming back a bit later just with a few highlights. It stands out a little bit because I have added a little yellow ochre and burnt umber. Therefore that color is not transparent anymore, and that is why it stands out straight away. So you see how transparent color recedes, because the foliage all around is in transparent color, and we can see that effect that it goes back. Then of course the brighter you go and the more opaque you go, and more forward it will come too. I need a little more Indian yellow, and we are now going to put a little bit of foliage on top of that, brighter foliage on top of this tree, just to make it look a little less dull. But again, we are not going to overdo this. This is too dark, so I'm going to brighten it up a little bit, adding a bit of Indian yellow and a bit of yellow ochre. It looks a little lighter. I think that should do. I don't want it too bright or too light, especially in the beginning. Can always go a little brighter later on if needed. So just a stroke here and there. We follow what's in the picture. Stay a bit darker below. The tree is always a bit darker down below and a bit light on top. Adding a few browns. They actually are orange, in the orange family, and red orange being in on the color wheel the opposite of green. It is a nice complement and therefore will really help the green to stand out. So make sure you've got plenty of browns in your trees. So when I say browns, I'm talking about burnt sienna, for instance. Here my mixture is a little red oxide, yes, nearly forgot the name now. A bit of red oxide and a little yellow ochre. Now going a little lighter, adding a bit of cadmium yellow medium, and just here and there add a few highlights. So now we just gently come underneath and just soften a little bit, and coming back a little later with some transparent dark colors and brown to help to turn the form a little bit. So here transparent oxide, and you come back underneath that crown and just help to turn the form. Here and there. So adding a few more darks here and there, a few more browns, and even we can't see it on the camera, it will pick it up. Once the painting dries, it will pick up all these subtle shifts of color. So a bit of orangey color, greenish color, blue color, etc. Last bit of light, just add some places. So we are Going to put some sky holes in now. Remember that they have to be a little darker than the sky around, as it's surrounding of a dark mass. It automatically would darken it. So we have to darken those holes a little bit. And the other thing is make sure you don't repeat the patterns. So if I put one here, I would put a small one next to it, one who goes maybe downwards, one would be like a little circle, and so on and so on, but nothing too similar, especially together they have to have different shapes. So we also can do a negative painting, which means that we put a sky hole in a shape who lets appear maybe a trunk coming off, or a piece of a branch or something coming off the tree. Don't forget to use your fingers, they're your best tools. Don't overdo it as well. So there's loads of small details that we have to remember as we paint, and every single bit is important. So here I use the color of the sky again to round up the tops of the tree. So by doing this, as you can see, if the sky would still be wet, I would use the sky and do it wet and wet. But as it dried, I'm just using it with a little bit of those sky hole color and making it a bit grayer, bluer, and then just going over my tops around, just to make it flatter and to give that illusion of that form turning, having flatter tops. So I decided to leave pretty much the whole length of the video. There is a few cuts in it and a few speed ups, but so you could see a little more of the work on this painting. I left quite a bit. I hope this is okay with you and not too long. I understand if you want to skip through most of it. I could have sped it up a bit more, I suppose. I know I will please some and unplease others. So again, here with a mixture of my transparent colors, I'm going to indicate a couple of branches. A little highlight on it. Very subtle. Bit of a highlight on the trunk itself. Not much. So now we're going to add a few darks. Add back a few darks here and there. Okay, now it will be time to address the house on the left corner. For that we are going to make ourselves a sort of a terracotta color. So a little of a bit of an orange. So as you can see on the picture from the start, it is a jumble of strokes, brush strokes, dots, and everything together gives us what seems to be a few houses or a farm, something like that, but nothing is very defined. And it's that sort of thing, plus, well, the rest of the painting, you will see there's no details, just a few brush strokes. So these things would define it being impressionistic, and which gives it some mystery, because interpretation is left to the viewer, who can make out what he wants. As if we give him a perfect house or a perfect barn or perfect crops, it won't give him anywhere to go with his imagination. And Impressionism is about giving the viewer the chance to make this place his by seeing things which probably aren't there. But to every viewer, and this is maybe not the best example, but some impressionistic painting are really telling different stories for each and every different person, as we could see and interpret the picture differently. So in that, I think it's really the magic of Impressionism. It's one of the reasons why I like that type of painting, or style, I should say. So let's fast forward a little bit. If we just go ×2, you will still enjoy plenty of brush strokes, but you don't have to really go through all this. I'm adding a bit of red sometimes to get a little bit of an orange and a different tone in color. The walls. And there it is. One stroke there, one dot here. A little bit of contrast, bit of light, bit of dark. Chimneys on top of the roof. There we go. They're far away, so we don't see them quite so clearly. A few highlights on the roof itself. And there we are. We have something that looks like, to me, it's a bit of a farm down there. Bit of an angle, that roof. There we are. Okay, quick wipe off the brush, and let's carry on with the fields in the front. So you saw me, I've just added a little bit of yellow, Naples yellow, and a little bit of yellow ochre just now, mixed in with a bit of greens. So just vary the color every time we take a bit of color. We just add a little bit of something, mix it around, try not to have the same color all the way through, just make it a bit interesting. Those strokes keep horizontal. We're on the mid-ground, so usually mid-ground stays quite horizontal unless I've got a post or something to, or a tree. I have something vertically to paint, but grass or land stays pretty horizontal on the middle of the painting and goes vertical as it comes towards you. And we generally do the same with the sky. We are painting vertically on top and going horizontally towards the middle of the painting. It just adds a little bit of perspective, of yes, perspective. Or we could say a bit of depth. Bit of depth of field. That's it. That's the word. That's what it does. Okay. So please let me know if you enjoy this. I have a few of you guys coming back to me, but not many. I don't know what to make of. I don't know if you guys like these videos, if you want to see something different. Got not many comments, and I would appreciate if you'd leave me a comment, even if it's a negative, because maybe or I think I need to improve, like everyone. Don't we all need to improve? So if there is a suggestion, something that you would like to see, please leave a comment. If you like it, please say so. Say that, yeah, that's okay. That's what you want to see, more of it or not, or whatever. Just leave us a little comment. So for those who don't know me, I'm been a painter for about 30 years. I lived in England for about 15 years. What can I say? I had a couple of exhibitions there. South End, one near London. Yeah. And yes, my time there was very enjoyable. To start with, I worked in a school, not as an art teacher or painter, funnily enough, but as a catering manager. My background has to do with food. But I've always painted. I did an art school back in France when I was in my early 20s. So that followed me the rest of my life. And I've enjoyed it ever since. Painting is very therapeutic. It can really help with stress, but also with depression. So give it a go. Just on its own, it's very relaxing. So here, as you can see, I changed my green. It's a different field. So the crop is different color. And as we come forward, we are going to change again. Well, as I said, every time we go back to the palette, we change a little bit the color, mix one into the other, add a little bit of yellow ochre, add a little bit of cadmium, Indian yellow, etc. Just change it over every time. Go on to the palette. But near each other, try to stay with the same value. So for instance here, if you squint, although it's a different color, if you squint, it disappears with the background color I've just put on, because I've kept the same value. So in other terms, you can make something quite a bit vibrant by just changing the color but keeping the same value. Okay, that's very important, to keep the same value. By changing the color, so by heating it up a little bit, so the green in the back is quite acid and a bit cold, and coming forward I change it up and I heat it up a little bit by adding some Indian yellow and some cadmium. So we have the same value, but by warming up the colors they seem to come forward. So it's the same field as the one who turns to on the right side, but is coming forward. So by coming forward it gets warmer, and this is what pushes it forward. Okay. So here we're adding a few highlights onto it. Following the picture. Making it a little brighter still, so it will come forward a little more still. Still keeping the same value. Here it seems a bit darker because it's so under the tree. Oh, when I say under the tree, I mean it goes through the tree trunks and foliage, so the color needs to change a little bit. And here I'm going to put my lightest light. So the eye will be drawn to this area. So we just come back from a little break, 15 minutes break, which you have to take every so often. If you put a little timer for every hour maybe, or every half an hour, doesn't matter. Also, I haven't mentioned it, but you don't see me doing it, but every so often I'm stepping back just to see if everything is in tune and if we are on track. So after a while, when you stare at a painting, you can't see really what you're doing anymore. Everything seems the same. So here we go, coming forward still. Okay, warming up still, because that's the nearest to us, so it'd be the warmest, having some browns and yellows in them, but especially browns. So you can make grasses without drawing them, just by pulling down some streaks. You may have the and changing color every time as well. Having the illusion of being grass without painting loads of small streaks in it. But the painting now starts to come together a little bit, as you can see. So we got some color pretty much everywhere now. So all is left to do now is give some interesting brush strokes. Also change the hue here and there. Change the color. So now I'm going to emphasize a few darks, so I go back into my transparent colors pretty much all the time, using ultramarine blue, oxide red and Indian yellow. And there on the picture you can see some patches of dark that I haven't put at the start. So I put them in now, and it gives me a chance to revise the whole picture and to have a look where there is more darks needed. Always remember there is no light without dark, so you always have to put some darks in order to show the light. You simulate some sticks and grass just by a flick of the brush. Also going to have to emphasize those two trunks. There is two trunks coming up from a smaller tree. I can do the separation with some grass color. Give that tree a little bit more of a tilt. Emphasize a few darks in there. Can add a few blues down there if you want. Coming out of the tree, blues can be very pretty and they actually have their place. If for instance down below where the grasses are, I've added a few blue touches in the shadows, that is. I would take just ultramarine blue and add a touch of white. So here I put a little lighter grass patch. Also comes round a little further. So you see, once you've put the shadows in, nothing stops you from getting the other volume, as here that patch of grass, and push the shadows back a little bit again. So you can paint into one or the other to have a more natural look. So by getting a little brighter here, it will really get the eye drawn down to this patch and not the tree. As the tree is a big volume, you naturally would be drawn to it, but that's not what we want. We want to see the presence of that tree, but we need the viewer to go through it as well and to travel back into the picture. few sky holes in the grass patch. It's still called a sky hole even if it's grass, or if it be a mountain, you still call it a sky hole. But notice how now I've brightened this patch here, how the eye can travel through. I also in a little bit I'm going to open up a little path in that dark foliage under the tree, as it's a little bit of an eye stopper there. But here I'm adding still a bit light, and that light with that dark contrast really is drawing the eye in. Subtle things like that is what makes a good composition as well. And Edward Seago surely knew how to make, with simple brush strokes, a beautiful composition. For those who don't know Edward Seago, well, he's born in March 1910 in Norwich, and he died in 1974, by age of 63 in London. But you can check it out. You can check out his biography on Wikipedia. He's also known for his beautiful water colors. He did many of those. And he was Queen Elizabeth II's favorite painter. She bought a lot of his art. He's painted the portrait of George VI, Elizabeth Bowes Lyon, and the Princess Margaret as well. So that's enough of Seago. I'll let you check it out. Check him out on Wikipedia. Very interesting. So back to our painting. Again, emphasizing a few darks, but manipulating the edges at the same time, so I don't make the edges too strong, especially on the sides of the paintings. So now we're just adjusting the tree trunk there on the far right. Or trunks, there's two of those. We're also going to have to add far trees on top of the houses and to the right there. So adding a few interesting strokes just to show some foliage in the front, changing the colors, and then roughing up the edges a little bit. So now there is time to add our trees in the far background there. Make sure they stay in a cool color. Make sure they recede well. And some trees on top of the houses there. So now we're putting in the finishing touches. Clean everything up. I'm adding a few lighter strokes there and a few darker strokes. So we are going to add a few more reds, oranges, browns don't know what you call it, it's all the same family to me anyway. So we add a few more of those in the tree just to add a little interest, and you will see how just a few strokes like that will make that tree a little bit more interesting. So here and there, just add a little bit of that color, especially in the shadow parts. So here I explained that this helps, as I explained earlier on actually, the form to turn a bit. Also, I say it again, but being a complement as a color, a complementary color, it sits well with the green. It just harmonizes a lot. So you can put a few in the grasses as well, yeah. Everywhere you got grasses, greens, adding a few reds like that to make it easier for the beginners. A good color to use for that is burnt sienna as a complement. If you don't want to mix your browns or your reds, burnt sienna works very well. So now we need to travel through there. I'm going to have to open a little bit on the bottom of that tree, but you can see how this light here is really attracting our eye towards that bottom of the tree, left tree there, bottom left of the tree. So here I'm just creating a little passage for the eye to travel through, because that dark mass was just stopping our eye there. We could see that there was something interesting going on in the back with that light drawing us into, but that dark shadow was just stopping us from traveling, to going into that back and go towards those buildings. Now, as you can see, by opening up a little bit here, straight away you can go through and back towards the buildings. It doesn't have to be a big opening, just a little bit like this. So there we are. Much better, don't you think? And now we travel over there, yes. Very nice. So now we're just adjusting the last few strokes. Flick here, flick there. Just make sure I get the last straight edges gone as well. Soften them a little bit. So this demonstration is coming to an end. So if you like that sort of painting, well, have a go. Go and check out Edward Seagull and just have a go. It is very fun to paint in this impressionistic style. So I certainly had fun to do it, and it's linked to a bit bigger painting that I did from this study. Another Edward Seagull, which is on the screen now, and I really liked painting this too. So just get one of your favorite painters, study his art, and it will only help you to understand and to become a better painter. So thank you, and I'll see you soon in another tutorial. Enjoy your paintings, and bye for now.